Welcome back to Melanated Perspectives with your girls, Renita, and who are you?
Every time, Tara. I have not changed. Hey, y'all.
Today we are talking about self-advocacy. I'm trying to remember how this came about. I feel like I said something to you, Tara, about this. Do you remember that?
I
No.
don't, but you can take credit.
I feel like I heard something and it just kind of got me to thinking like, how do you advocate for yourself if that's a challenge, if it's a strength, and then especially as women, when I don't think, we're often supported in that way because I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I think sometimes when you advocate, we somehow advocate for ourselves and then become a bitch, which I find very interesting sometimes, but dudes do it all the time. And we're like, yeah. So, Tara,
Dudes are taught to do it from boyhood, though, and
true.
girls are taught to be caring and advocate for others. But I digress until we get into it.
That's
So, you know how I like to do. I like to start with a definition so that we can rein in what we're going to talk about and all be on the same page. So, the definition that I found from the Peel Center for Self Advocacy is the ability to articulate one's needs and make informed decisions about the support necessary to meet those needs, which I thought was amazing. So that's what we're working with today. And I am incredibly excited because we have two guests on our show for the first time ever. We were like, we talked enough, time for someone else.
right.
So we have two friends. Renita, you want to start?
So, I'd love to introduce my cousin Liz. I am 9 years older than Liz, so I have lots of stories of when she was just this super cute pigtail wearing girl who I could just be like, come on, Liz, come do this. Let's do this. Do you want to play? What do you want to play? Um, Liz is a teacher in locally here in the St. Louis area at the Lindbergh School District, second grade. And it's just funny that at the time Liz seemed so much younger and now we like hang out and do things like we're not just cousins, we're friends too. So it's funny how 9 years when you're nine and this person is born and it seems like I'm so big and now I'm like, okay, let's kick it, let's have a drink, let's talk about something. Liz, is there anything else you wanted to say? That might was kind of a kooky introduction. Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I'm just flattered that you all invited me, and I've been listening to the show, and so I'm excited to be on here.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And I invited Megan. She is what I would call a friend, and you guys know that I can start off kind of cold. Like I'm not very warm, but we were in the throes. You don't have to do all. She's shaking her head for you guys that are just listening and not watching. Anyway, so we were in the throes of the pandemic. Megan and I serve on a parent. We served on a parent committee together, so that's how we knew each other, but we never met. And so everyone was tired of being in the house. The kids were going nutty because they were all virtual. So we had a little get together in my backyard, and Megan and her little ones came. And there were two reasons that I was like, oh, she might be able to be my girl. The first one was there was a 90s, early 2000s song that came on. I cannot think of what it was, but let's just say it was a song that would make one dance. And Megan was popping. And I was like, okay, I see you. And then I was like, okay, that might be a fluke. I'm not sure. I mean, she very, very nice, very kind, same wavelength as far as like equity, diversity, and all that goes. But then Hamilton came on. And
Mm.
she kept up with me, y'all. So I knew for sure that she was my girl for life. So thank you for joining us today, Megan. Do you have anything?
No, thank you so much for having me. I'm just like really thrilled and honored to be here. And I don't remember the song, but I do remember dancing in your backyard and Hamilton for life. So, boom.
Yes.
You two are destined to be friends because Tara, I mean, and if you say anything that's close to it, like then she rattles on with a Hamilton. If you respond with something and I'm like, oh, Hamilton lyrics, and that's all you listen to, I mean, I'm not sure.
Don't be judgy, but my son will walk in the house and he's like, oh, Hamilton again? Knock it off. But anyway, I digress. So thank you both for joining us.
Yep.
I'll let
you.
Renita
You let
get
me
us started. Yeah, sorry.
get it started in here. Let's get it started. Okay, so let's Tara, I'm sorry, will you read that definition one more time?
I will. Self-advocacy is the ability to articulate one's needs and make informed decisions about the support necessary to meet those needs.
Okay. I'm just curious, like, for all of you, like when you hear that definition, does that jive with you? Did something different come to your mind? I know a lot of us have notes. What kind of came to your mind, or what do you think about when you hear self-advocacy? Who wanna go? Who wanna go? I'm gonna have to invite you guys. You guys are teachers. You know how it is when students.
We know how to wait it out.
I can share. Yeah, that sounded pretty similar to what I have. I had written down about like expressing your views or your values, kind of sharing, asking for what you need, and then sharing just your thoughts and opinions with others.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Meg-
I liked that definition too. And the other thing that I thought of is what I think of self-advocacy is that it's a little vulnerable and it requires some like authenticity. And I think specifically for me, like that's something that I've been really working on. So it was it was fun to kind of reflect on that and especially with that definition. So
That's really interesting about the vulnerability. Until you said that, Megan, I didn't think about that, but that is really true, and I could see how that being vulnerable is a hard thing to do, right? Like, so that's a good point. Tara, did you have something to add to that? What do you have in
uh, what do I have in my notes? Um, I have that part of it is about worthiness,
your?
self-worth, self-worth more so. Because I think when we think of advocacy, most times it's us advocating for someone else. And when we do that, we believe in them. We believe that they're worthy, but particularly for women, when it's time for us to advocate for ourselves, we get tight-lipped. We don't want to be too pushy. And I think part of that is like an I don't want to say an issue with worthiness, but not really claiming
Mm.
our worth or being afraid to express it. So that would be the only thing I would add is feeling worthy, like you deserve it.
That's deep. Okay.
Yeah, I feel that a lot.
I
Yeah.
Oh, say more.
Yes.
Just I think you're I mean, I just think you're absolutely right. Like if you don't feel worthy, then I mean, it would almost feel impossible to ask for what you need. And it is, I think, easier to um, advocate for somebody else versus turning that and then advocating for yourself. Because, like you had said, with women, I feel like we so often, oh, I'll just adjust my schedule or I'll just do this and not always speaking up.
Yeah. Renita, what do you think?
You know, well, you all have some really a lot. These are some deep, well thought out answers. I really like this, or thoughts. I should say. I guess I was thinking about it too, about the idea of we know ourselves well, so no matter who, because we're all married on here, right? And we love our husbands most of the time, right? But like the idea of knowing what you need for yourself, and even within a loving relationship, right? Realizing I still need to like look out for me, and not like anti my husband, but just the idea like I know myself, I know what's happening, and having to say like, hey, right now I might just need some time away, or saying things like that. I guess it just started making me think about those pieces, about even people that you're close to and love and respect you. They're not necessarily doing that to you, or it's not a you versus them, but just really knowing yourself and knowing like when you need to be like, I know what I need right now, and I need to say that to you. And I feel like as hard as it might be, at the same time, people that truly love you and respect you can understand, like, like if you need a minute and your friends or your partner or whoever might be like super close in your life, to realize, okay, this person needs a minute, like space or whatever, and they don't get in their feelings about it, they're just like, okay, you're advocating for yourself. There should be We really shouldn't shame, or just, I don't know what the other words people do to people about that, but you know what I mean. Like, and I don't know. I'm kind of getting off another thing, but
Now, if I could like dance with you on that for a little bit, Renita, like
mm,
the way I was thinking about it too is that like I have to be honest with myself in self-advocacy, right? Like if I'm feeling agitated or I'm, feeling all of these other feelings, instead of just being like, you know what, you're all right, just keep going, push through it, to stop and say like, what do you need right now? Because
mhm,
like you're not great. So, do you need a minute? Like, and that's something that I think I have really struggled with, is just like being honest with myself internally to like advocate here before I can even advocate for myself to somebody else. I have to do it within myself first.
true. Okay. Um. Well, I think I was gonna kind of skip to a different question, only because the stuff that you all are saying is making me think about kind of the origin of our relationship with self-advocacy, and like us sharing maybe like not your full-on story, but just your story connected to self-advocacy. Do you know why it is whatever it is for you? Do you kind of know why it is that way? Does that make sense when I'm
I'll just say it, mine is because of men, like because of the way like boys have treated me,
Mhm.
right? Like that was my, like, I know that's been my motivation from like feeling the need to self advocate, is because like I had to find my worth differently than what like a partner was seeing,
Okay.
and being able to say to them and myself like, this doesn't feel good, I don't like this, I need something different. And like I know that that seems minimal in like the broader world that we're living in now, but I know that that's kind of like where I learned to do it. I
Mhm.
learned to kind of stand up for myself and advocate for my needs.
All right.
Absolutely. I definitely can speak to that too. I definitely think um, being around men and boys and those kinds of things, it definitely is easy to kind of get lost in it and just kind of go with whatever and not speak up. But one thing I would also say is just I feel like I learned, um, tried it from other people's mistakes, and I had to realize that nobody was going to help me. And so I think even like especially in high school and then through college, I really had to. I realized that the buck stopped with me, and if I was going to get enough credits to graduate, nobody else was going to figure that out. I couldn't rely on the counselor or anybody else. Like I had to figure it out. I had to do everything because I kept hearing about these people. Oh, I'm one credit off, or this happened to me, or this happened to me. And I kind of learned that like, you know, I'm the greatest advocate for myself, and I got to keep my records, and I got to keep everything straight, and I have to do it if I want it. So then it kind of just became like a personal mission and a drive for me.
Okay.
I know.
Nice.
Bringing the big dubs. Big
I know. I think for me, so my mom is a big proponent of self-advocacy. But I think part of that is that it came off as harsh to me. And so I wanted to distance myself from that a little bit. So early on, I know that I was quiet a lot. And I think as I grew up and got older, it came to me more easily. So maybe it's just, an age thing.
Mhm.
But I feel like I am better at it in my professional life more so than my personal life. I think it's harder when there's a love sort of relationship, So that's something that I'm still working on. But yeah, what about you, Nitra?
Well, similar to you, my mom has a strong personality, and I feel like I saw my mom advocate for a lot of people, maybe more than I saw her do the self-advocacy. But I, like you're saying, I also see how sometimes, what is this? Oh my God, they changed the Zoom recording thing. They're talking about the time's almost up. Okay, sorry.
You might have to just start a new meeting and we'll
Yeah,
have
we'll
to have
probably just have
Josh
to do
break
it.
it.
So y'all know that's weird. That hasn't happened. Maybe they took off the unlimited since the pandemic isn't, at the beginning like it was. Anyway, so but sometimes the way that my mom would advocate, I saw how it could rub people the wrong way. Similar. So, yeah, so it was just kind of interesting watching that because like Tara, I know this is shocking now, but I was really like shy and I was really quiet. Quiet to the point where this dude in high school, I remember I answered a question in math class and he turned around, he's like, I've never heard your voice. Which now it's like people hear my voice all the time. And so I think like you, mine was like the confidence and the aging process helped me to advocate for myself. And then yeah, I really think it was like a confidence as I got more comfortable with who Renita is, what Renita's into, what she doesn't like. It was kind of like, this is who I am. This is what I want. This is what I don't want. And you either kind of like me or you don't. And so yeah, it definitely was a learning process and had some growing pains early on. Um, oh, I do. Oh, Tara, you talked about the struggle. It's a little easier to do it in your professional life versus your personal life. So I kind of want us to go around and answer that. Like, do you feel like one area it's easier to do, or is it equally challenging or equally easy? Since you already answered, Liz or Megan.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Are you talking about advocating for like yourself at work or advocating for like the workspace and
Yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're up.
Oh, I'm still on. My bad. I had to think about it for a second. I don't know. I think it's hard because like I'm a teacher, and as a teacher, and Liz, I'm sure you could say more about this, but I'll just speak for myself for now. Like you rarely spend time advocating for yourself. Like all you're doing is advocating for these kids, right? And so there's definitely things that I believe in as a teacher that I will advocate for. And I think that will, that kind of aligns with self-advocacy because it's something that I believe in. It's something that I feel is good for me, my students, the community, whatever it may be. And yeah, that feels really good to advocate for. And so I think that is much easier than advocating for like a personal need, even though there is some overlap there. There certainly is, but it's definitely easier kind of to be more outward facing in that way.
Wait, Megan, I have a question for you. Do you find it as challenging professionally to self-advocate as you do in your personal life, or is there a difference for you or no?
I don't know if there is a ton of difference. I'm not a naturally confident person, and so I'm always assuming that people are like thinking the worst of me, or like I kind of go into spaces, whether it's personal or professional, just like assuming that I have to prove something. So I don't know if it's that different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Liz, what about you?
Yeah. So I was thinking professionally, I think it's easier to advocate when the group is smaller. So like if I'm around my teammates, like I'll advocate for myself like no one's business. But then as that bubble grows, like and you get a staff meeting and I tend to quiet down a little bit more. And then you get like all the second grade teachers in the whole district and or the whole district meetings. And I feel like it's a little lost in the crowd kind of deal, like harder, more people, more eyes on you. And I think it's kind of harder that way. And then personally, I've been really working on advocating for myself with my husband, and it's been something I've actively been working on. And so that's actually been going really well. It's almost too well now where I don't have a filter anymore.
Go.
Yes.
And he's like, geez. And we've been working on different phrases to use so that we don't get caught up in like, the lingo. But I will say, to the extended family, both on his side and on my side, it's still a struggle. And I don't know. I think Tara mentioned something about when you've got that relationship and when you've got that like love, or you've always, especially on my side, I've known people for my whole life, and I was raised to respect them and all these things, and now we have different views, or they're not treating me how I want to. I find it hard sometimes to just step out there, and I kind of get in my own head, and I guess one of my biggest fears is, what are they going to say back, and am I going to be prepared for it? And I hate being caught off guard and having to come up with something, because then if I don't, then I feel like I let myself down.
That's deep. It made me think of.
Well, go ahead, Tara.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to make a joke, and I was going to say to Liz, our family has different views. What? Different?
Gosh, you never know it, right?
I know. Shocker. No, go ahead, Tara.
No, I was going to say the phrase that I always say, and then we kind of come together on it. Like, if fear lives in the dark, what's the worst thing that could happen, right? Like, the love's not going to go away. We might disagree. We may not talk for a little bit, and that might be better. But that's what I try to think of. If fear lives in the dark, then what's the worst thing that could happen? And then once you like open the curtains a little bit, then it becomes easier to say no or ask for something. That's my deal. Renita, what about yours? Professional or personal?
At first, when we first brought this topic up, or however, when Tara and I discussed it a little bit, at first I was like, you know what? I think they're both not super challenging for me. And then I was like, no, I would have to say that sometimes professionally, especially in the nanny world, talking about the money piece and coming to somebody about like, a raise or that can
Hey, hold up.
not you.
Now, this is him. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. Let's be
Not you.
serious. Carry on.
Not you. So I would say that there's like somewhat of a challenge there. And I tried to really think why. I think money is just a hard piece with me, period. Tara knows that about me just because I think honestly it's because I've never made a lot of money. Like all the jobs that I've been interested in, they're just not, you don't do them because you're going to sit back stacked, right? Like I do them because I really like kids and I really like a flexible schedule and I have fun. And um but I did think if I had to say, I think professionally it would be slightly more challenging than personal life. Does anybody have like a specific story that either it was an easy, maybe it was funny, easy, challenging moment of self advocacy? Because I thought about that. It could be kind of cool to hear a story. Tara, I know you got something.
I do. I want to let someone else go first.
No, go.
Go, start us off.
Okay, if you insist. So, this is a professional one. I moved from the law firm to the company that I work for now. And I decided that this was going to be first time in my life that I was going to negotiate my salary.
Mm.
I work for a pretty large company. And so I had my notepad, I had all my information down, why I think I deserved X dollars. And so I left trademark work and I was going into patent work. And let's be real, those are not the same. And frankly, I didn't know a thing about patents, but I had my notes nevertheless. Anyway, so the salary that they had offered was significantly more than I was already making, but I just wanted to try it. All the guy friends, all the professional guy friends that I knew, on a regular basis, this was something that they did. I had a friend that left the firm and went to the same company, and she did it. And I was like, I'm just going to give it a shot. So I did lots of Googling. I practiced in the mirror, and then I gave it a shot. And it worked out. So that's my takeaway is give it a shot. What's the worst thing they could say? But I will say it was the scariest. Okay, it was not the scariest. Childbirth was the scariest. It was a really scary professional thing that I had ever done because I'm like, can they just say we don't want to hire you now? Can they like rescind the offer completely? So it was a really scary thing. But after it was done, I felt like a rock star.
I bet.
You are a rock star.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fuckered.
No, I'm glad you shared that, and I'm glad because my follow-up question was how did it feel, but you already answered that. So no, I'm sure that was a really big like pat yourself on the back, like I got strong arm. I mean that's big.
Yeah. Okay. Who's up?
Who's next? Mm.
I don't have any good stories. Mine feel so insignificant compared
See?
to something like that. Because
No,
because
you
like
can't do that.
no, and I think really it's because self-advocacy is not something that comes natural to me. So I've had to work really hard at it. And it's something that I think has been really new in my life, like within, I guess like within the past 10 years, but like I think specifically with COVID, like that kind of like put me on this trajectory to like really think about like what matters to me and how I want to put myself out there in the world. And so even if it's just something, like telling somebody to put their mask on because my kids aren't vaccinated, like something like that. But that again, that's not advocating for me. But I think too, it's just about being real with my feelings and being okay saying no to somebody, being okay, saying like, I'm not feeling it, or I don't want to do that, or just being honest with people in how I'm feeling and knowing that that's okay. Because I think for a really, really long time, I was just always trying to do what I thought somebody wanted me to do. And then kind of taking ownership of myself and saying, like, well, I can also make a decision for what I want to do. And if I don't want to do this, or I do, then I can say that and not be scared that they won't love me anymore, won't want to be my friend anymore, and just know that that's like normal relationships, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. I actually have a follow-up question, Megan. You said it, so my question, because you've owned that it's challenging for you, is it the fear part? Because you said, you know, that doesn't mean they won't love me. Is that what's kind of behind some of the challenge? Is that somebody may not like you anymore, or may not talk to you, or love you, or
Oh, 100%.
okay.
It's all, yeah, 100%. It's all just like, and I'm very grateful that I have a husband that has like worked with me through this, where like after years of being together and getting in the same fights about the same things, and he's just like, do you think I'm just gonna leave? Like, is that what's happening here? And I'm like, well, yeah, like you'll just go. And he's like, but I'm not going anywhere. And so like he's had to really like work with me in this like fear of I have abandonment issues, right? And so like I'm always just like assuming that I'm easy to leave, like I'm easy to, like
Mhm.
moving on. So I've kind of like created this bubble of like trying to just make everybody be okay, and
Mhm.
push myself out of that equation. And now I'm trying to bring myself back in.
Okay. I'm feeling it. Liz, what about you?
Yeah. Well, so the first thing that kind of came to mind was I have some of my husband's side of the family, multiple family members, who kind of drop little they say some inappropriate things, but they feel all big about it, like when are you having kids and who wears the pants in your relationship, and and just mansplaining anything they possibly can. And in the last 2 years, I've really gotten a lot more, uh, gotten my nerve up and really spoke out, like advocating for myself, because my husband will just sit there and he's like, I don't know what to say. So it's kind of like me, again, going back to, I'm the only one that can take care of me. I can't rely on him to fight my battles for me, or he's just as feeling awkward as I am when they say these things. But of course, they're mostly aimed at me, being the woman, and not at him. And so I've had to do. I've been doing much better at turning the tables, or saying, well, that's just not appropriate to say, or please don't ask me that anymore, or all those things. And even just this weekend, I said something to my husband's brother, my brother-in-law, and afterwards, my husband was like, wow, you're getting really good at that.
Oh yeah.
Love that.
So I'm gonna ask you similar to what I asked Megan, Liz. What is it? Is it a fear factor? You said earlier about not wanting to be caught off guard. Is that okay? What's happening here? Um, is that kind of what's behind? Okay, maybe to say this or not to say this, to advocate for myself. What's kind of behind the reasoning, maybe not to do it?
Well, usually I get caught off guard when they say it. It's like, I can't believe you just said that to me. Like, I
Mhm.
would never ask people that, or say, so first of all, I'm caught off guard anyway. And then I'm just like, what do I say? This is somebody who's close and family, Is this going to get around? Are they going to spread it to all the other family members? Am I going to hear about it later? No matter what happens, I got to spend all my holidays with these people. And, these are people that I'm not like, never gonna see again on the subway or something like that. I'm always gonna see these people. And I guess the other fear is like being ganged up on. Like, I would hate for someone to interject, another person to interject into our conversation,
Yeah.
and then I never feel like they would take my side. Like,
Mhm.
I always feel like I would be the odd person out, and then I'd never want to, like, I guess it's too risky to have those odds set against me.
Mhm.
Okay.
So
Man, I have it's a small story, but it's a kind of a funny self-advocacy. So the first family that I nannied for, my days were like almost like 10 hours, I think. They were pretty long. And you all know because you know your fields or your personal life, you worked with kids, and you know that's a lot of energy, that's a lot of time. So what would happen is the kids didn't watch TV a lot, but if we did, I would have moments where I was like falling asleep. And and not because I'm not saying I never went to bed late, but in general because my day was long, it was like, okay, I didn't mess around with my sleep. And because nannies don't get like a lunch or typically a break, you're like, I, you know, and this was my first family, so I had never done it before. So I was like, so me being my personality now, I came to them and said, pretty much said, like, at some point, sometimes I'm falling asleep. Can we set up some kind of break time? Because they were really big on even when the little one was taking a nap, the middle child, they were like having me do like not schoolwork, but kind of like somewhat like schoolwork. So there wasn't even just a minute. And so I pretty much said to them, like, I need this because I'm straight up falling asleep. Like, I just need a minute. And I would just typically, I would just like check my email and just, and the kids would be fine. It's not even like, it was 45 minutes. They were very clear on the time. So it's not like I was doing this for 2 hours. And they didn't, and it's not like the kids didn't play on their own and were like, where's Nene? You know, but I just remember I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna keep it real with you. I'm falling asleep.
What did they say?
They pretty much just said, okay, we'll give you like, you can have like 45 minutes during your day to just do your email or whatever you need to do. I was just like, okay. And that was it.
Did you plan for it, or was it like last straw, Sesame Street was on and you were just out? Like, what happened
You mean plan?
for the conversation?
No, I think it was really just the idea that I noticed this kept happening, and I was like, this is a long ass day. And I knew, and not trying to be like, let me get you, but I knew at their jobs, they got on their social media, they were checking their, you know, they had lunch, they had something separate from their job. So I was like, this is not like I'm asking for anything that's really that. I mean, it might be different in the nanny world, but it's not abnormal. And because they were really good at like bonuses and not promotions but raises, I felt like they told me like, if you're going to treat this like we treat this like a business and how we, then I thought, well, then I should say this to you because I shouldn't be falling asleep on your kids. So yeah. I'm glad we talked about this because I hadn't thought about that story in a long time. um all right, so okay, this is one of my favorite questions because this is something I'm working on. What do you see as the benefits and or the challenges of your style of self-advocacy?
I came up with honesty. Like when you're really feeling honest about like yourself and you're putting it out there. The joy of just being heard, like finally, like, being heard by someone. And
Mhm.
then just, I feel like once it's done, like you always come out the other end better. It's kind of like, the rainbow after the rain. Like you feel like you have a better understanding no matter what, because you were honest and you were feeling heard, and then and that relationship kind of changes, even if it's just the slightest, more awareness. And I feel like
Mhm.
that's a really good benefit.
True.
I agree with that.
Me too. I like it a lot.
Hmm.
Anybody else have something else or something different?
It might be the same. Were you about to say something, Megan?
No, I was just gonna say something that you and I talked about. So go ahead.
It might be the same when Liz said you come out on the other side feeling better. I think doing it and then building that confidence makes it easier to do it the next time. And then you just keep getting stronger and more confident and more willing to take risks, because every time you do it, it is a risk, you know? I mean, not that, you know, you're going to lose someone, but it's a risk to your, what is it? Not ego, but I mean, it's a
Pride.
risk. Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What were you going to say?
Well, I don't know if you remember this, Tara, but we talked about this when we first talked about this subject. Something I will say it, and you can correct me if you're wrong, but I think you'll agree, or correct me if I'm wrong.
I was going to say, I don't think I'm wrong, but
Right.
Tara,
My bad. Me, something I've had to learn, because going from like not talking much, not saying a lot of things, to now I have a lot of opinions and a lot of things to say, that's a big jump, right? And so I'm working on doing things more with a little more kindness and less I can be a little rough sometimes with people, and some people that I'm around are like that's okay for them, right? They can take that, they're not even phased by it. But sometimes even advocating for myself, it doesn't have to be necessarily like "Rawr!" And I can be like that. And so I feel like, okay, yeah, I'm good at this. Okay, but you can do this a little nicer and a little more like my delivery. Yeah, that's the best way to say it. Sometimes is challenging, and I'm trying to be like better about that and think like if I was on the other side of this, maybe I would appreciate somebody doing it with a little more kindness and love and not necessarily harsh.
I like it.
I have something bad. I don't know if it's bad or good to say, but I'm going to say it anyway, and you guys can tell me what you think. I think like a part, this is going to sound really bad, but a part of like my journey in this too is, and I don't know if it's a benefit or whatever the other word was. I can't think of it right now. Yeah. Is that also just like starting to, as I get older, I start caring less about what people think about me. You know, like
Yes.
it's like whatever, like you can take it or you don't, and it's not gonna affect me. Whereas if you would have talked to me 15 years ago, I would have been like begging for that approval. But now I'm just like, all right, well, I'll say this, and you can either accept it or not, and that probably won't phase me as much as it would before. Um, and so like finding that balance, right? Like finding the balance of like, I don't give a care. Can we cuss
on here? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I've heard you all guys like,
Yeah.
you know, like that whole like, I don't give a shit, but like this still like I still matters to me, right? Like, and finding like that balance of like how far to push or how to push. And so that's something that I think like I'm finding both benefit and challenges with,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes any sense at all.
It
I'm not
does.
sure.
I like how you said how to push. That really resonated with me. Like that there's a respect. It's almost like there's a respectful way and a not respectful way, and like knowing, what to push and then how to do it to also get your point across, but then still honor the relationship or the space between you. I think that's really powerful.
I like that. I heard from someone, and I wish I could remember who it was, but I know it was a woman because she said, I need you to talk about yourself the way your mother or your sister would talk about you.
Mm.
And like, that's super real, because my mom wouldn't be crappy or super aggressive, but she would say it with like this love and tenderness and just honesty. And if you approach it that way, you know, I'm not being prideful or anything like that. It's just this is what I need. And especially in like a loving relationship, like if I get this, I can be 10 times more me for you. You know what I mean? So That's going to be my other takeaway at the end of this. Like when you're doing this, talk about yourself the way someone you love would talk about you.
Well, that does bring us to our favorite part, maybe, of our podcast is when we give takeaways. And before I have anybody who wants to share a takeaway, I think what's so cool about this panel is I want somebody else who's listening to be able to relate. And so the idea that it's not just Tara and I with our experiences, but having you, Liz, and you, Megan, being here, so somebody goes, hey, I can relate to that, because I think that's always nice when you have a group on here and you're like, okay, I can pick up some of that. Oh, there's my son.
Oh,
Hey.
you're so cute.
Thank you. So what we love to do is just, if you have something that comes to mind, like a little piece of advice that you would give to somebody, a takeaway from this conversation, from your own journey, what would you say?
One phrase that I like, I also compare it to teaching, but I think it also applies here. I think it can apply anywhere. Is it gets easier, but never gets easy.
Mm,
And I feel like you can just apply that to like so much. And I always remember that because like especially like when first year teachers come to me, I'll be like, well, it does get easier, but it doesn't ever get easy. And I feel the same way about this. Like Tara was saying, the more you do it, the better it becomes. It's never just all of a sudden easy. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a problem with it from the beginning, if it was just easy. But it does get easier.
Dang, Liz, that's a good one.
Preach.
I like
Who
that.
wants to go after that? Liz, thanks a lot. No, that's really, that's a lot of things. You're right. I feel like,
that's life.
yeah, I'd say life, being married, in my opinion, that has a lot to do with being married. I mean, it gets easier, but easier. Wow, that's really interesting.
Okay.
Some dinosaur sounds in the background.
Megan, what about you? Anything that comes to mind?
I mean, I love what Liz just said.
Set the bar a little high.
Yeah, seriously. I've like got nothing. I don't know. Like my takeaway is that just like anything that, and I'm speaking for myself because I'm not as good at it as a lot of other people, is that like practice is important in anything that we do in life. And so I've had to like consciously make a commitment to this. And I think that that's like a step that a lot of people that I always missed, and that sometimes I see it missed in others, is just like committing to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're deciding how you want to show up and how you want to show up for yourself, and just understanding that it's in you, and it's up to you to like sprinkle it out there. Yeah,
I like that. Sprinkle it out there, baby.
sprinkle.
Yeah, I like it.
What you got, Tara Denise?
I gave you mine.
Oh yeah, you did.
Yeah. What about you?
You know what I would say? No, to realize, because I'm sure from the stuff you guys have listened to on here of me talking about this, I'm really big about my time and who I want to spend time with. So the idea that I feel like when you advocate for yourself, just pay attention to other people's reactions. Now, I'm not saying somebody close to you couldn't get like offended or have a reaction that you're like, hold up, and that it can't be repaired, because I do think it can. But in general, I feel like people who really care about you, really have your back and care about how you're dealing, how your life is, will respect that. And even if it takes them a moment, but they'll respect it, right? I feel like sometimes those are signs of like, yeah, you don't need to be here with me. because when I decide I need time or I have to say no to your thing and you get all worked up, okay, hold up. Especially if you have a conversation with that person, right? And tell them what was going on. So, no, that's just kind of came to my mind. Watch your circle.
Okay. Okay. Well, I want to say thank you again to you, lovely, kind, fantastic ladies, for joining us today and being vulnerable, as Megan started with. Like, it can be hard to do this, and I think you guys came in like full of openness, and I appreciate you for being here and like doing this with us. So thank you.
Yes.
So happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
I definitely echo that, Tara. That was well said. No, it was fun. It was fun to Tara and I have a good time, but it is cool to have some other folks on here and just engage, and have different energy and personality. So I really appreciate that energy, bud.
Well, I'm ready for the Hamilton episode, Tara.
Oh,
Just come on and just geek out about Hamilton.
don't play.
I'm there for
it. I can see the costume already.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. All right.
All right. Well, that's it. I'm going to stop the recording now.